Hey guys, Urban Combat Survivor here. I meant to make this video last week when I took this thing to the range, and I failed to because I was distracted getting ready for the trip down here to Houston, and I didn't make the video on this that I intended to make. So I hope that the lack of a visual isn't going to be an impediment to people understanding. However, I guess if you're looking to pick up a Mosin Nagant, you should already know how a bolt action rifle works. If you do not, there's a million videos of bolt actions you can see. You bring the bolt up and then pull it back. That ejects the previous round, the shell, and loads the next cartridge into the chamber, and you lock the bolt back down and then you fire. I noticed that after firing maybe 20 or 30 rounds, there was so much heat generated in and around the chamber that the bolt began, I guess, catching. It expanded, and it became more difficult for me to work the bolt. Now, this wasn't just my Mosin. A friend of mine went to the same gun show I went to, and he picked up a Mosin from a different vendor. Mine is a hex receiver, his is a round receiver. Mine was made in 1929, his I believe is 1946 or 1948. So ultimately, they're two different guns manufactured 20 or 30 years apart. Same design, of course. And they had the same problem. After a certain amount of rounds, 20 or 30 rounds, figure about a 2-second interval between each fire, so it's not like I was trying to rapid fire these things. The bolt started getting sticky. Not just sticky, but to the point where I almost couldn't work the bolt up to open it and eject the round to load the next cartridge in. After, I don't know how many, I didn't count, but after maybe 100 rounds or 150 rounds, possibly even as many as 200 rounds, I did put a couple of hundred through the rifle. It expanded, the bolt itself expanded so much that I was unable, with all of my might, to yank this thing. I couldn't, I could force it over, if I used a lot of pressure, a lot of force, but it was very difficult, and the gun was very hot. Hot enough that when I took it apart and I cleaned all the cosmoline out of the metal working parts, I didn't bother to clean it out of the stock, the wood. And the Mosin Nagant has it's a two-piece stock. It has the bottom stock, and then it has a piece of stock that goes over the barrel. That whole end that goes over the barrel was literally bubbling out cosmoline. That's how hot the rifle got. So it may be that I was expecting to use that rifle in a manner that it wasn't designed for. Well, certainly it was. That it wasn't designed for what I was doing with it. But I never considered the possibility that after only maybe 100 rounds, the metal would heat so much that the bolt wasn't able to be opened. I'm a pretty big guy. I'm 6 foot, and I'm not a weak guy. I've done manual labor pretty much my whole life, so it was difficult for me to open that bolt after maybe 20 or 30 rounds. It started getting difficult. By the time it hit 60 or 70 rounds in both rifles now, not just one, it got to the point where I had to really force that bolt open. And in my ignorance, I believed that it was because it just needed to be worked in. Then at the end, my buddy left after firing about 100 rounds. I went on to continue. I fired maybe another 50 or 100 rounds through mine, and I couldn't open the bolt and extract the empty cartridge, so I had to actually open the magazine and manually pop out the rounds that were left in the magazine, and I had to leave that cartridge in the rifle, and I switched over. I was firing my SKS. After maybe 20 minutes, I was able to open that bolt. It was still very sticky, but I was able to open the bolt and extract the shell that was in there. I was concerned that between the expansion and extraction, that thing was going to wind up getting stuck in there, so I didn't want that. So I did work that thing out. I got it. It was still difficult at that time, but I was able to extract the empty cartridge. And when I took that Mosin Nagant home, I had to I have a couple rags in my range bag, so it wasn't that big a deal. I just wiped off all the cosmoline that was coming out of the wood, which was kind of interesting and entertaining to watch. But at the end of the day, if you are considering a Mosin Nagant because you don't have much money, if you're trying to find a primary rifle that you can afford to practice with, I think a lot of people are probably considering the Mosin Nagant. It's a solid rifle, but it is something that you should consider if you're going to try to use this thing as your primary defense weapon. That it's going to heat up, and you're not going to be able to operate it. It was, it's a very accurate rifle. I was happy with its performance. It did what is expected of it and what it was designed to do. I just wish I had known prior. First off, I wouldn't have fired so many rounds through it consecutively. And second off, one of the guys I'm working with picked up, the guy that went to the range with me, he picked up a Mosin Nagant as his primary because it was tight on money. So at this point now, I know that if he is in a situation where he has to use that weapon, let's say all hell broke loose and hordes of zombies or demons are rushing his house, he's got maybe 20 or 30 rounds before it starts fouling up the smooth action of that bolt. Now, when it cooled down, when I got the rifle home, it was like butter. Again, that the bolt moved very smoothly. It felt like there was no friction at all, and it was fine. But when those things heat up, when you start putting rounds through, when you start putting them through their paces, that bolt is going to stick. It's going to expand in that bolt carrier well, or I don't know exactly what that part's called between the tang and the chamber, but that shows my lack of experience with firearms. I just wanted to make sure that people knew, if you're planning on picking one up, understand that as a primary, after a score or a couple of score rounds, you're going to be running into a problem if you need to keep firing that weapon. So if you're going to pick one up, I believe if you have nothing, pick one up. Absolutely. Waiting to pick up a better gun is, kind of like I hear a lot of people that I'm going to go off on a little side tangent here on this, I guess, but there's a lot of people that I've spoken to or have spoken to me or I've gone back and forth in messages with who are saying they don't want to prepare for where they're at because they don't plan on being there for very long. And I think that's a mistake. I think we all need to prepare for right now first, and then make your preps as mobile as you can make them, as transferable, as universal as you can make them. So if you don't have a primary weapon, and all you can afford to do is go pick up a Mosin, then by all means grab one. I would advise, though, that when you get another $100, you go buy another one, because you might have to switch out rifles. Of course, my advice on the very first primary for everyone is a 12 gauge shotgun. But if you're uncomfortable with it, a 12 gauge has more kick than a Nagant. Not too much, I guess. It has considerably more kick than both the Nagant and a 12 gauge have considerably more kick than, say, my SKS does. But not so much that I think you can't handle it, especially if there's adrenaline running through your system. The world's going crazy outside. I don't think you're going to notice the little bruise on your shoulder from firing 100 and 200 rounds through the thing. But you may want to pick up a spare as soon as you're able to do so, just so that if it heats up to the point that you need to pass it off and pick up another one, you have one available. Again, I think a 12 gauge a better option for your first one, and I think Mosins are great as a backup rifle. However many people are going to be in your situation, you never know, somebody's going to show up that may not have a rifle. Family shows up, you can't turn them away. You can say, here, you're backup. Just don't point this thing at me. Keep it sticking, towards the bad guys, and take your time. Pick your shots. So I just wanted to put that information out there. I wanted to, not that I think he watches my videos at all, but I wanted to thank Yankee Prepper because he just put up a video on how he cleans them after shooting corrosive ammo, and it reminded me that I hadn't done the video I intended to. So there it is. If you're picking up a Mosin Nagant, know that either due to my ignorance or due to the design of the gun, either way, after 20 or 30 rounds, that bolt starts getting difficult to work, and after 50 or 70 rounds, it starts getting very difficult to work. And then after 100, it's going to start getting to the point where you simply can't work the bolt anymore. You're going to have to let the weapon cool down. So keep that in mind when you're out there shopping if you don't have anything yet. Again, if you have nothing and all you can afford is a Nagant, then grab one. But if you do have something and you're going to pick this up for a secondary, just know its limitations. I just thought I'd throw that out there. If anyone knows of something that I did wrong in this situation to make that happen, because it happened on both rifles, so it's not like it was just the one rifle and I can attribute it to some flaw in the rifle itself. It was two rifles. So like I said, if anybody knows anything, drop me a comment, make a video response, throw a PM, whatever you're comfortable with. Other than that, Mosin Nagant, I'm happy with the rifle. I'm happy with its accuracy. It's big, it's heavy, it's got a hell of a kick, but a hell of a kick might be a good thing if the zombie hordes are coming your way, no? So there it is, Urban Combat Survivor, signing off.